All right, finally, let's move on to the AFC West.
We didn't really fix the Jags, but
Well, find some high-value positions. Okay. Receivers and corners. I said receiver at 9, corner at 20, build around Gardner, fixed.
All right.
Ish. All right, Kansas City Chiefs. Let's fix your Super Bowl champion Chiefs. Not everybody's going to get fixed, but if you want to repeat, I think, Bashad Breeland and Kendall Fuller, both free agents. I like the idea of bringing Fuller back, the way they used him, versatile safety/corner. They moved him around. Again, assets on the back end because Spags, their defensive coordinator, Spags, has done a nice job playing to their skill sets, figuring things out, using a Tyrann Mathieu the way you're supposed to use him, all those guys, right? Assets on the back end, even though they won the Super Bowl with, on paper, not a great group.
Well, that's the thing. That's what makes this a great spot for the Chiefs is that they just won a Super Bowl. They have the most talented quarterback in the league playing out of his mind and apparently only just learned to read defenses like a week and a half ago.
That's not what he said.
And your defense wasn't good. Like it went from being awful to being reasonable, right? Took a big step forward, but there is massive room for growth in this defense. So you can spend this entire offseason essentially throwing everything you have at trying to make a defense that's good. Then how the hell do you stop the Chiefs in 2020? So job one is franchise tag and extend Chris Jones. Like keep him in the building, whatever you need to do, don't let him leave. If it's only 1 year, fine, but do not let Chris Jones be playing for a football team other than Kansas City in 2020.
You want somebody that's going to alter game plans.
And he can.
Up there, right?
So, yeah, he can take over games in a way not many defensive linemen can. You should not let that leave for almost any reason. And then job two is, as you say, attack cornerback, right? You've got a couple of guys that are hitting free agency. Even if you hadn't, they would be guys you should be looking to upgrade upon anyway. So find yourself some corners, throw resources at it, draft, absolutely. And I think there's room for this Chiefs team to get even better.
What if they really try to break the league? Everybody's like, again, when people do mock drafts, it's like, where's the need on this team? Oh, they don't have a name at running back. Let's give them a running back at 32. So we've seen, running backs mocked at 32. And we've seen, people, Eric has come back and said, oh, well, everybody that says this guy's gonna dominate, he's gonna eat in the Chiefs scheme, right? And that's kind of the point, right? Like Damian Williams ate in this scheme. So continue to just put the next running back out there, let him eat in this scheme. I want to know if you really try to break the league. Sammy Watkins, let him go. Mm-hmm. Get the next big receiver. Get another one in this receiver-rich class, right? Don't let the league catch up. You're an explosive offense. Don't let the league catch up. You need some, Tyreek Hill's been banged up a little bit here and there. The offense is a little different without him there. You got Mecole Hardman. Get another receiver to add to that mix. Really break the league.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I said, you're never going to be wrong if you take a receiver in the third round.
Good, because I suggest it for every single team.
Yeah, exactly. So the Chiefs, if they came out of this draft with a second or third round receiver, I wouldn't hate it.
I'm saying back end of the first, maybe one of those top guys.
Go cornerback. Attack cornerback at the top of the draft.
The value should be there, I think.
You should have some value. And that is, so as much as we talk about, look, let's think long term. At some point a need is a need, right? And you actually need to attack that pretty aggressively. The Chiefs do not have great corners. They were able to get away with it a year ago by going very game plan specific. But at some point, there's no substitute for actual talent, and you don't have a ton of that on the back end. So get it.
Add some depth on the offensive line. I would go second wave of free agency.
Sure.
As far as the O-line goes, add some cornerback talent. And I'd be intrigued by more playmakers there.
I mean, they're another team that should be looking at those reclamation projects at cornerback, whether it's a Ronald Darby, whether, you could bring in a guy like Trey Waynes, who's got some skills but is a limited player. Prince Amukamara who got cut because nobody ever values that guy, even though he plays better than most cornerbacks in the NFL.
And there are certain guys around the league. Stefan Wisniewski is the guy you keep mentioning on the offensive line. Just bring him in every year. He'll be better than a lot of the other guys.
Prince Amukamara and Stefan Wisniewski are essentially the same guy on different positions.
I love it. Good call on Amukamara. Absolutely. I like that fit as well. All right, Chiefs fixed. They're going to be repeating. Oakland/Las Vegas Raiders.
They're no Oakland anymore. They're officially Las Vegas.
No, I decided I was going to wait. When does the league season, the league year officially start?
I saw the big board behind their radio road desk at wherever the hell we were just at, the Combine.
Combine.
Right. They're Las Vegas now. It's done.
I made my own rule. I was going to wait until the league year started,
Well,
which is when free agency starts.
Unless you have an advertising hoarding behind you that says Oakland Raiders, I'm not buying it.
All right, fine. Las Vegas Raiders. How are we going to fix the Raiders? Where do we start here? With the Raiders? Remember all the 2 first-round picks once again after having 3 last year. Didn't love the way they went last year.
Got to get leadership.
Less because of the in part because of the actual players, but mostly because they got our 5th edge defender at number 4 overall. They got a strong safety who didn't play last year. That's not the point. They got a strong safety and they got a running back. And again, the running back was fantastic last year.
And it didn't matter.
And it didn't really move the needle as far as winning football games. You're not just trying to draft good players anymore, Sam. We're trying to draft valuable players, my new shirt. So they need to draft valuable players with their first 2 picks. And I think, again, we come back to receiver and corner as the 2 biggest needs for the Raiders.
Receiver, definitely. They did remarkable things given what that receiving core actually was last year. They were helped out massively by Darren Waller coming kind of from nowhere and becoming a really valuable and legitimate threat as a receiving tight end, where he'd previously been a triple option wide receiver in college.
Ton of credit for that move. That was outstanding.
Yeah, so that helped that offense hugely, but ultimately you're still left with a receiving core that's like Zay Jones, Tyrell Williams, Hunter Renfrow. They need players at receiver. They need guys that can get open. They need impact players. And as we said before, it's a great draft for doing it. So I think that should absolutely be in play for either one of their first-round picks. You should be in a spot to get one of the top wide receivers. You're probably going to miss out on at least one of the whatever teams I think are probably split on Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb as their number 1 wide receiver. At least one of those guys is probably off the board by 12, but you might get the other one. And even if you don't, you go down to 19, you're going to have the next wave, I think, of receivers, whether it's a Denzel Mims, whether it's a T. Higgins. You're going to have some quality receiving options in that first round. You should absolutely come away with one wide receiver.
I would say, here's the other way I would fix the Raiders. I don't completely buy into the Brady rumors going there. I also don't know that that's a move that they need to make or whatever. But
tickets.
Assuming Derek Carr is the quarterback there, you're gonna fire up some Matthew Stafford 2019 film and watch Stafford going full YOLO down the field and say, look, Derek, you don't have Stafford's arm, but you are more than capable of making every last throw. Derek Carr's peaks, which was mostly like 2016 and early 17, right? His peak looked outstanding. His work with Amari Cooper was awesome. Touchdown the field. He can zip it in, the dig, the post, all of that stuff. I want Derek Carr attacking down the field. And you get the playmakers for him to do it. And your offense will be better. And you don't run the offense through Josh Jacobs. You run the offense through Derek Carr attacking vertically down the field because he's capable, and you stop taking a guy who's more talented than Alex Smith and having him play like Alex Smith.
You know the song Stairway to Heaven?
Yes, I do.
Have you seen their quarterback depth chart right now? Because their quarterback depth chart reminds me a little bit of like Stairway to Disappointment.
Oh, geez.
It's like we start off with Derek Carr, right? And already that's a sort of what could have been. 2016, we saw this guy look like he might be the next great quarterback, and then, Mike Glennon is the backup.
He had a nice rookie season in 2013.
It's like, oh, look, Mike Glennon might be oh, no, not so much. Deshaun Kaiser.
He had that one good game in 2017 as a rookie.
Right now, it's like, oh, look at those tools. And then, ooh, no. And then the 4th quarterback right now is Nathan Peterman. And that was like, well, the analytics look kind of, ooh, no.
He was the best quarterback at the Senior Bowl because he checked down. I remember my analysis was like, because he checked down more than the other guys and didn't miss as many throws. Yeah. He was the best quarterback at the Senior Bowl that week.
And it's like, well, he's got a noodle of an arm, but he's been pretty accurate. And then in the NFL, it's like, well, okay, but he was accurate to all the defenders. So that, to me, the Raiders' quarterback depth chart is Stairway to Disappointment.
That's not fixing them at all.
It's not, but I just thought it was kind of funny.
It is pretty funny. So I would say, again, we're repeating ourselves. Receivers and corners should be at a premium at the place where they're going to pick. I also wouldn't hate the fact they don't have a second-round pick. I would not hate if they took 19 or 12.
Continue to add a couple of seconds.
Their roster just needs so much help at crucial spots that you add some more seconds. You just continue to add depth to that roster.
What do you do with Derek Carr?
I think you trot him back out there and you try to be aggressive with him. I think you can win with Derek Carr.
Right, but sure. But in this off season of exceptional quarterback availability, do you think about a change?
I don't think that there's enough exceptional upgrades, at least not long term. I mean, yes, like would Brady in 2 years be better than Derek Carr? Probably, but also not definitely. I don't see where else you've got. Do they do the Marcus Mariota thing? Right, just if anybody can get Marcus Mariota for like $3 million, then that's worth it.
I agree.
As soon as Mariota spends, remember Bridgewater signed a backup deal for like $8 to $10 million a couple years ago with the Jets. Like that's a lot of cap space to spend on like a maybe.
Yeah.
So
yeah, sure.
Anyway, the Raiders, I would say, spin your draft capital. You want to look back at this Khalil Mack trade, which everybody was like, "LOL Raiders, you idiots." If we want to look back at this Khalil Mack trade and say, well worth it for the long-term health of the team. It was the right move at the time for the long-term health of the team, in my opinion, and by all the numbers. But at some point, it's not even about picking the right players. It's about picking impact positions that will help you look back and say, look at how much better our team is.
But ultimately, that's the argument against the Khalil Mack trade, right? Is that you have to turn those picks into players who ultimately have to be combined to be worth more than Khalil Mack.
But if you do what the Seahawks did last year and turn 1 first into 6 other picks, sure. And then it's like, okay, Khalil Mack essentially netted us like 12 players.
You can maximize the chance of that happening, right? Look, the Raiders have done a bad job of even approaching making that a reality in terms of making the Khalil Mack thing match up to guys that are worth more than Khalil Mack. But so they've done a really awful job of actually, making that, of maximizing their chances of hitting on that. But that's the reason people argue for the keeping him around, is that you have an all-pro superstar here. And even if it's going to cost you a lot of money, the certainty of knowing that he is awesome is valuable.
Yeah, it is.
And it's weighed up against the uncertainty of being able to turn what you get for him into something as valuable or more valuable. Now, you can maximize your chances of doing that by hitting the right positions and by trading down and getting more of those shots, but it's still a gamble, and ultimately the Raiders gambled and failed so far.
So far. That's where they are right now. Continue to trade down, find those valuable positions, unleash Derek Carr next year. All right, we got 2 more teams to fix here, Sam. Los Angeles Chargers has to start with the quarterback position. Tyrod Taylor, currently the starter. I know you're just going to roll with Tyrod. That's your guy. Roll with Tyrod.
Well, I'm intrigued by Tyrod because he's the quarterback that no one is talking about this offseason. And I can understand why, because when he started last with the Browns, he was god-awful, like abysmal. But you go back to his time in Buffalo, and he was a lot better than a lot of people were giving him credit for.
He was fine. It's just his style-wise takes too many sacks and just doesn't hit the short and intermediate stuff as efficiently as other quarterbacks. It's a lot of boomer bust down the field
to
and
offset that
bad
he has
drives.
Yes, but to offset that, he has rushing ability and talent.
That does help.
That if you maximize, and a lot of coaches don't, can mitigate a lot of that stuff, right? So I'm not saying he's Lamar Jackson or anything, but if you build an offense that specifically gives that thing focus, it makes him better within the system.
So if the Chargers are willing to buy into that,
which they're probably not,
then you'd be okay with Tyrod. But they really need to go.
I mean, look, draft competition by all means, but don't discount the possibility that Tyrod Taylor can be a viable starting quarterback in the NFL again and function.
They're sitting there at number 6 in the draft. Mm-hmm. If our number 3 quarterback, Justin Herbert, is on the board, we don't think he's as clean of a prospect as Joe Burrow or Tua, but do you still have to just take a shot at him at 6?
I don't love just taking a shot at. I would. So if Tua's gone at 6, or if you don't think you can get as high as you need to get Tua. Look, Tua is the optimum scenario for the Chargers, right? They somehow come out of this draft with Tua, and they now have Tua and Tyrod Taylor as your bridge quarterback. That's like jackpot.
That's beautiful.
Pennies raining from the sky. That's everything being awesome. If that doesn't happen, I would not force a quarterback at 6 just to get one. I might try and trade down from that spot and see how far back in the first round I could get and still snag a Justin Herbert. But I really don't love him to the point where I would be trying to shoehorn that fit to whatever it took to make it happen. I don't have confidence enough in his ability to be a franchise quarterback that I'm prepared to just take him wherever.
Any of the other free agents intriguing there? Is this a Marcus Mariota spot? Is this a Teddy Bridgewater?
I mean, if you
we're not talking guys like Dak because I'm just assuming they're going to end up in Dallas again, right?
They're another team where I think you hang on and you take whoever's left standing, right? Because I don't think you're in a spot where you're in desperation mode. You have a Tyrod Taylor. If you come out of the draft and you didn't get your quarterback of the future, and it's like, all right, now do we still have a Marcus Mariota sitting here waiting for an ideal scenario landing spot, and can we talk him into coming here and compete with a Tyrod Taylor? I'm all for that, but I think you wait at that point.
It's not an ideal strategy, but if the Chargers roll with Tyrod and say a Mariota, and they say, look, our best bet is winning on defense. That is where we've gotten corners and safeties. We have a good secondary. We've got a pass rush and all that stuff. Our only way of winning, even though it's a low percentage chance, is to play the uber ball control game. Maybe there's more Ravens type run heavy concepts, offensively behind Tyrod or whoever's running it, and you just kind of roll with the defense, which again we know is really risky. I'd also be really tempted at number 6 to bring in Isaiah Simmons just to pair him with Derwin James.
Yeah, of course you would.
I would just love to see that.
At number 6, I think another spot is the best tackle on the board, because for the 58th year in a row, the Chargers need to fix their entire offensive line.
Just traded Russell Okung for Trey Turner, who comes in.
Who in and of himself is not fixing anything. When was the last time Trey Turner was actually playing well?
I mean, he's solid. The thing is,
he will creep back toward average. I'll give him that.
But if they have Turner in one of the top tackles, that's not a bad combo. And maybe that was part of the reasoning, right, for trading Russell Okung for Trey Turner as well.
Sure.
People are trying to figure out what the Panthers were thinking in that end.
You need to fix the 3 other positions on the offensive line anyway. So I would be all for taking a tackle at the top of the draft.
So O-line everywhere.
Yeah, always.
And
they're another team, again, where
competition for Tyrod.
Start looking at that second tier of free agents, because, again, you need all of them.
All right.
Need every spot on the offensive line, start filling in some holes.
Rounding it out with the Denver Broncos, how are we going to fix Denver?
I would look so obviously the theory is that they have their starting quarterback now.
It's a theory.
So let's build around him. Let's start giving him the best environment possible to thrive. I think Courtland Sutton had a fantastic season a season ago. Let's add more. Courtland Sutton on his own is not going to get it done. Let's bring in an Emmanuel Sanders, for example.
Those guys those are not easy to find.
Right. Obviously, you had one of those and you let him go, but let's replace him. Let's get another Emmanuel Sanders, because you need to have more than just a number 1 wide receiver. They should obviously expect Noah Fant to progress and be, a serious weapon as a tight end option, but let's find a legit number 2 receiver that can be a big impact player.
I think Denver's in a really tricky spot with Drew Lock.
Okay.
As a second-round pick who did some nice things.
Wasn't Joe Flacco. Let's say that for him.
Is he really better than Joe Flacco right now?
Yes. Yes, he is.
I don't know that he is.
Oh, he is. Joe was miserable. He was just depressing.
I mean, when he wasn't taking sacks, Joe threw the ball really well. Listen, they're in a really tricky spot with Drew Lock. I liked the Drew Lock pick as a second rounder, where it's take shots at quarterbacks in the second round, as long as you're open to continuing to find the guy. I don't know that he's the guy yet. I also don't know that they're in the middle of the first round. There's not this other guy that they should get.
Here's the thing, though, right? If Drew Lock is not the guy, everybody in that building's being fired. So there's no let's hedge our bets and get somebody else. You've used up 8 of your 9 lives, and Drew Lock is your 9th. If he craps out as well, the cat is dead, and we're throwing him out with the trash. He's gone.
Listen, you still have to build around him. I would just, in the back of my mind, just be man, I don't want to completely hitch the wagon to Drew Lock. It was just it was a nice pick.
But they already have.
Because they had back-to-back second rounders.
They don't have an alternative anymore. It's you screwed up too many times that you don't have a fallback. If Drew Lock isn't the guy, you're all gone.
It's just not a great place to be there. They had the back-to-back second rounders last year, Dalton Reisner and Drew Lock. I know they won some games with him. He played, just all right. He had a lot of help. I like the idea, though. You say playmaker, somebody opposite Courtland Sutton. You have Noah Fant, last year's first rounder, as at least an explosive tight end that the defense has to account for. He's not the best all-around tight end. I like that as a strategy. And then you got to look at the O-line as well. Center's a spot. They got to replace Connor McGovern. But still, and then, defensively, you come back to this whole cornerback situation like we've talked about with everyone else. Their 2 best players in the secondary last year, Chris Harris, Justin Simmons, both free agents.
The second, also, just to put a bow on the Drew Lock thing, I'm not saying I'm sold on him being the answer. I'm just saying that at this point, he is for Denver, whether they want him to be or not.
He's the guy that they have to build around.
He is the answer for them, because if he isn't, everybody's getting fired and we're rebuilding this whole thing from the ground up.
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
They have to buy into the idea that he's a starter and let's maximize his chance to succeed. From a defensive point of view, they need help everywhere. So as you said, a bunch of those guys are hitting free agency. Alexander Johnson played really well last year. Bradley Chubb, I don't think is ever going to develop in anything more than like good. Like, he's not going to be special the way Von Miller was. And what's kind of concerning is that I'm not sure if Von Miller is going to be special anymore. He started to slow a little bit. Last year was the first year of his career that he didn't I think it was the first year of his career that he didn't have a PFF grade above 90. So he like 90.
Oh yeah, it was a big drop off as you're looking it up.
Yeah.
They're another team that when you're looking at the team and it's like the receiver depth chart isn't horrible, but you'd love to have somebody with Courtland Sutton, right? And because people are just filling out depth charts, they're also looking like, man, we got 7 defensive tackles, all as free agents, whatever it is, like just grab a Derek Brown or a Javon Kinlaw. They're another team that has too many holes at corner or at receiver that if I walk away with a D tackle in the first round, unless you know you're going to get one on the turn and you're playing the depth, I don't love it as a strategy. I'd rather get corners and receivers with those first 2 picks.
So first year that Von Miller did not have a PFF grade north of 90. And it wasn't just slightly below 90, it was 79. So it's like a 10-point.
Yeah, his first year, like he was under 80 which is crazy.
It's the first, so he's had pass rushing grades below 90 before, but he's never had one lower than 85, and this year it was 71.4. So Von Miller is now 31, had by far the worst season of his career in terms of overall and pass rush PFF grade. Still racked up a bunch of pressures, but obviously they weren't the same level of quality as the pressure he normally gets. So you need to start thinking about, what if this is the beginning of the end for Von Miller, if he is on the downswing of his career and he is no longer a special impact, devastating pass rusher the way we have come to expect. Now you need to start looking at his replacement.
Yeah, that's not a great place to be in, figuring out where a superstar edge, your top 2 coverage players in Chris Harris and Justin Simmons, a wide receiver to complement Courtland Sutton, and some O-line, either depth, Ron O'Leary gone, Connor McGovern gone, trying to figure out how to fix that as well.
Yeah.
So I come back to value positions. Start with corners and receivers, work your way down to the edges and the interior offensive linemen. Find some of those bargain basement free agents when it comes to O-line.
They've got a lot of salary cap space to spend as well, so they can be a player in free agency and attack this thing on multiple fronts.
Give everybody Amari Cooper.
Well, look, it's always a nice place to be, right? Having some draft capital and free agent spending money, when you have a lot of holes to fill. So for Denver, I think they need to survey the market. They need to either be in an Amari Cooper sweepstakes or, start looking at your favorite defensive impact player, start attacking multiple spots in terms of the mid-range guys, and in addition to, plugging some holes in the draft.
Sounds good. Denver Broncos fixed.
Done.
All right, we took longer than we expected.
Oh, what a shocker.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.